our minds, which has been covering over the minds of all sentient beings through beginningless time. It covers the minds of everyone but the fully enlightened ones, the Buddhas and the Arahants. Now, ignorance functions in two ways, one negative, the other positive. On the negative side, ignorance simply obstructs us from seeing things as they are. It throws up clouds of mental darkness. It conceals the true nature of phenomena so that we ignore the real marks of things. But ignorance also has another function, a positive function. That is, it creates in the mind certain appearances, illusions, which are called in Pali vipalasas, literally perversions. These perversions infest the entire process of consciousness. So that instead of seeing things as they really are, we see them in ways which are quite the opposite of the way they really are. That is why they're called perversions. They turn everything we become aware of upside down. The perversions operate at three levels: the level of perception, the level of thought, and the level of understanding. First of all, we perceive things in a distorted way. Then, building upon these distorted perceptions, the mind thinks about the percepts in a distorted way. Then, weaving these distorted thoughts together into a picture of the world, we interpret our experience in a distorted way. That is, we become subject to the perversion of views, to wrong understanding. Now, the Buddha teaches that these four perversions, or we should say, the Buddha mentions four perversions which occur at each of these three levels. The first is the perversion of regarding the unattractive as attractive. This refers especially to objects of sense enjoyment. Seeing the body as beautiful and attractive when the body is really a mass of skin, bones, organs, flesh, and blood. The second perversion is the perversion of regarding what is really dukkha as a source of true happiness. Seeing what is unsatisfactory, insecure, connected with pain, seeing that as pleasurable. The third is the perversion of regarding the impermanent as permanent. And the fourth is the perversion of regarding what is really not self, not an ego, taking that to be our self, our ego. Each of these four perversions occurs at the three levels: perception, thinking, and views. And because of these distorted motions, our minds get caught up in the web of illusions. They give rise to craving, conceit, wrong views, and all the other defilements. And in that way, we become lost in dukkha, in suffering. The Buddha's teaching on the three universal marks of existence, impermanence, suffering, and selflessness, this gives us the remedy to clear away these delusions, the means to get free from suffering. The perversion of regarding the unattractive as attractive, this is limited to the body, and therefore its antidote, which is the meditation on the unattractive nature of the body, this is not really a universal characteristic, but is more limited in scope. The three universal characteristics are impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. And these three characteristics have to be understood in two stages. First, they have to be understood intellectually, by reflection, by examination. Then when we've understood them intellectually, then we have to penetrate them by direct experience, through direct insight. Now, intellectual understanding should not be confused with insight, and it shouldn't be made a substitute for it. The value of intellectual understanding is preliminary. It serves as a preparation for insight, but eventually it has to give way to direct realization. And so when we explain these characteristics intellectually, we shouldn't make this a substitute for practice, but just use it as a guideline for understanding what has to be seen through the actual practice of insight meditation. Now we'll take the three characteristics in turn. The first characteristic is anicca, impermanence. This is the root characteristic in the Buddha's teaching, the characteristic which is the most fundamental, the one which forms a basis for the other two. It's because of the characteristic of impermanence, as we'll see, that things become unsatisfactory and become egoless. The mark of impermanence has two aspects. One is gross, the other is subtle. The gross mark of impermanence is fairly evident, and we only have to attend to it in order for it to become clear. The teaching on gross impermanence makes it known that everything that arises must at some time pass away, that whatever comes into being must eventually pass out of being, that whatever is put together sometime comes apart. This is evident in the cosmic process, in the course of history, and in the course of our own lives. The Buddha teaches that the cosmic process goes through 4 stages of development. Every world system goes through 4 stages. First, it emerges from a state of undifferentiated matter. Then it evolves to a point of maximum differentiation. Then, thirdly, it begins to disintegrate. And fourthly, it goes to a stage of total disintegration, total destruction. Then, after some time, the process repeats itself over and over. In that way, every world system arises, evolves, and passes away. In history, we find the same pattern again. A civilization, an empire arises, reaches its zenith, then it